What also may not be shocking or surprising to you is that in the wake of the Orlando mass shooting, the share prices, the stock prices of America's two biggest gun manufacturers, Smith & Wesson and Sturm Ruger Company, have shot up. We've been talking for a long time about how gun manufacturers benefit hugely from shootings and violence and the fear of violence. And indeed, the Smith & Wesson stock yesterday was up 11% intraday and closed up around 7% for the day. Sturm Ruger Company popped up about 10%, ended up closing out the day about 9% up. Gun makers' stock suffered somewhat of a setback last week when the FBI reported that the number of instant background checks decreased, maybe a reduced desire for firearm purchases. And then immediately after this shooting, the stock price is shooting up. So why does this happen, Lewis? Well, number one, when there's an attack, people feel a more acute need to have guns to defend themselves, even though in many of these scenarios, more guns would not really bring about a successful conclusion to the circumstances. But number two, whenever there's an attack and access to guns is discussed as a factor, the fear-mongering begins around, oh no, a politician, more than likely a Democrat as the story goes, is going to take my guns or make it more difficult to get them, so I'm going to go out and buy even more guns. And in particular with this shooting, yet another shooting where an assault-style rifle was used, that props up fears that those types of firearms will have access restricted. So this is really, really disturbing, right? I mean, a horrific mass shooting, and all of a sudden, shareholders of these gun companies are sitting on more money.
Yeah, and 10 points in one day. I mean, this does not mean that the gun sales from that day translated to stock prices going up. I mean, this is purely speculative.
Well, the idea of free market economics and stock prices is that the share price reflects all known information at the time.
Right.
So even if all of these guns aren't bought the day after the shooting, the information of that shooting and how individuals are likely to respond is presumably what investors are responding to. I mean, this is sort of, pie in the sky, totally efficient
But people
market
are buying
theory.
guns.
But people are buying guns, and we know that gun sales are stimulated by these types of attacks. So yeah, gun manufacturers benefit greatly from a business standpoint from these shootings, and the gun fetishists will blame the left. They'll say, well, if the left didn't start trying to grab guns whenever there was a shooting, then people wouldn't go out and try to buy more guns. But we know that the NRA does a pretty good job of making people believe they need to have more guns. I mean, that is their job after all.